Now, again, all of these phrases and words come from your page in various places that I pulled together. So bear with me. Here we go. So
Oh God, I open my mouth a lot. This is scary. Okay.
it's something pretty good. We'll just go with the flow. Here we go. So people deal with anxiety, stress, and even panic or panic attacks. What would be your recommendation and suggestion, some quick tips that people can keep in mind in dealing with anxiety, stress, and panic?
So, a lot of those three types of conditions are intertwined, and prolonged stress can turn into anxiety. And like clinical panic disorder is a little bit different than anxiety, but it's that same loss of control, that same fear, that same what if, but it can be physically overwhelming, as can stress and as can anxiety. Um, the biggest the biggest tip for people suffering from that isn't to medicate yourself or isn't to read a bunch of self-help books. It's really to get to know yourself and get to know your triggers. And that takes a long time and it takes dedication. Everybody's kind of looking for the quick fix because, digging deep is super scary. Like, why am I having panic attacks? Oh my God, I was triggered. I had an event, a very traumatic event at this point in my life that I don't want to think about. Or stress, can happen the same way. I have a marriage that's eating me alive, a boss that's, tearing up my mental health, jobs or, obligations that are killing me. Or anxiety, I put myself in such a situation that my life is continuously lived anxiously and without, any peace. Because we're not being honest with ourselves for the easier cases, let's call them, about what makes us happy, about what makes us tick, about what we truly want in life. And I think the biggest tip around that is sit back and journal. Journal every single day, and journal every single day for 21 days, just 21 days, to make a habit out of it. Hello. Oh, hi, Sarah. Sarah, I talked to her briefly. She follows me on Instagram, and yeah, she's a cool chick. So yeah, journal, because you can go back and you can read those words, and the thoughts aren't fleeting, and there's a little bit of, you're kind of vomiting up all the feelings that you're scared of on a page, and you're not being judged. It's all out there. And then it's all out there for you to go back and reconsider. And also within those journals, you'll be able to see what was going on at that time. Who were you around? How did it make you feel? It brings more awareness to the self. And I think that's step one, is creating some awareness and getting all of those things out of your head and onto paper, so that you can, either work by yourself or work with a therapist or professional to go through. Because a lot of times people will say, I never realized that could have been a thing. Well, there it is. So I think it's getting to know yourself by simply even just step one, journaling.
And matter of fact, you got something on the screen. Somebody's mentioned something to you there.
I wish I had journaled.
No, go ahead. You read it.
I wish I had journaled. I've got a whole book worth inside here. Yeah. And some of us feel like we have to be these writers and we have to be so eloquent and beautiful with our words. But what's beautiful is just being you and having your own feelings come out and being honest with yourself. Oh, my gratitude journals were life-changing. Yeah. Michelle did, I can't remember which program that was with me. That just kind of tried to bring awareness every day, very quickly, something that you're thankful for, because we get stuck in these ruts, right? And it gets you into the habit of just writing something simple down. But yeah, it's liberating, because then you feel like you've given yourself a voice, even if you don't have to be on a soapbox talking to somebody else or on a forum like this where people are hearing you. The only validation you really need is from yourself. And I know we strive to get validation from everyone else, but that's in part because we can't give it to ourselves.
There you go. Right. And that's a beautiful way to segue into the next one. The next thing.
Yes.
Here we go.
I can't even flick my hair.
I'm sorry. Out of all the things you could have said, that's the thing you said. I can't flick my hair. That's what. All right, Claire. We got more people jump. We got more people jump.
Hola, 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 hola.
Don't listen. we're essentially walking down the road of self-improvement or self-improvement work is kind of what I wanted us to discuss tonight, because you actually talk about that on your page. So here's one. I give you this, and then you tell everybody some helpful tips. Anxiety trigger solutions. What are some anxiety trigger solutions that you could lay out to individuals so that they can deal better when they are triggered by anxiety?
I thought you meant anxiety triggers solutions, like as in it makes it. But I was like, yeah, it kind of does, because it makes some people very efficient.
It does. It does motivate us to get a solution. Go ahead.
Yeah, like we have to deal with that. Triggers. Oh, well, again, it's all about understanding yourself. But for instance, there are certain situations that we put ourselves in all the time that we don't need to. That don't make us feel good, that give us apprehension the day before we're entering into them, while we're entering into them. I mean, not something like, say, agoraphobia, where you have a fear of driving over bridges. I could say never drive over a bridge, but you're probably going to need exposure therapy, because you might want to leave the house every once in a while. It's a very real thing. Oh, Jose, hello. I think he might be in Italy. I can't remember. Boundaries. Boundaries are the solutions for any sort of negative, apprehensive feelings that we have about our day-to-day world. And sitting down and setting real goals about like coming to understand who we are, understanding what our life goals are, and then setting boundaries around those goals to make ourselves, like, carve out a safe place for ourselves, because often we're trying to please people, and often we're trying to do things that go outside of the realm of self-care and right into sort of this boiling pit of putting yourself last. And people will see living with boundaries as something super harsh and a punishment for others, but what it really is a protective mechanism, a protective measure or mechanism for your own mental health, and sometimes even your own physical health, because the mind can then, eventually poison the body. So I always recommend talking to people about boundaries, especially where relationships are providing a lot of a source for anxiety, or even situationally, because typically all of our anxiety comes from interacting outside of ourselves. And where we have no ground rules, where we don't say no, where we don't say maybe, where we don't say I don't like that, where we don't speak up for ourselves because we feel like we're not good enough, or we don't have permission to do that. But boundaries are a super grown up, super awesome way to quell anxiety. And it's something we should be teaching our children as well. And it's not just, it's kind of like, learning, doing the work around boundaries and facing trauma of the past, for sure. It's the stuff that our parents don't teach us about. Okay. Like when we're younger, boundaries.
That was beautiful. Okay. I'm going to keep them coming, because here's one that I saw on your page. Codependency annihilation.
Codependency is more than just a relationship problem. There's a lot of early childhood trauma that causes us to be codependent, and doesn't allow us to make decisions in a relationship, makes it hard for us to identify our feelings, or having even difficulty communicating in relationships, or just valuing that approval from others more than the way that you're valuing yourself, and not trusting yourself, and having poor self-esteem. And that codependent sort of personality disorder is something that you kind of have to tune into immediately. And a lot of people, like, the most simple way of looking at it is, are you a people pleaser? Are you constantly doing things? Are you only when you've been given approval by somebody else? Do you put your needs to the side and put the needs of others first? And people will typically discuss it sort of in the context of substance abuse, where one person's abusing the substance and then they depend on the other person to supply them money. That's kind of how codependency works. But it's a little bit more broad than that, and it's a relationship where any, couple of people can become so invested in each other that they can't function independently. The most dangerous type of codependent relationships are obviously parent-child, one where you're very much at the, mercy of whoever is your caretaker. But there are a lot of different ways that you can sit down and analyze the relationships that you're in as an adult, to decide whether or not you have these unhealthy signs of codependence. And based on that, most times with most people, they cannot get out of a codependent relationship on their own. It's very difficult for them to navigate that. It feels like betrayal to, hello, hi everyone. It doesn't.
Oh, go ahead.
It's not currently recognized as like a diagnosable, mental health condition, but there's, good research that suggests that it's a condition of like a mental disorder. And so I think if it really does exist, it would be worth checking out. And then there is deprogramming required. Some people are just at the cusp of it, and maybe you can catch them. But that's a path I think you have to walk with someone in order to get through, because your view is very narrow about how deep in you are.
They may need some assistance to stop that people-pleasing codependent behavior.
Yeah, though people will be bonded traumatically, and they'll consistently come back to the negative behavior, and they'll actively seek out and keep and feed off of that, like we talked about last time, that emotional addiction of unfulfilling, unhealthy relationships. It's a wheel that they're stuck in. And, if you find yourself complaining about someone in your life often, but you're still keeping them in your life, friend, lover, parent, it doesn't matter. It sees no boundaries in terms of personal relationships. It is best to, pursue some counseling. If you're a couple, go to couples therapy. And if you find that you've been alienated in your codependency from people you used to see a lot, reconnect, because isolation is one of the things that happen during codependency. So maybe as a first step, if you're scared of counseling, I know I get a lot of first-time clients who are like, I've never done this before. I'm ashamed to even be talking to a therapist. I'm like, if you don't want to talk to me right now, that's cool. But, one of the first things you can do on your own, I guess, would be to take yourself out of any isolation you have, start calling people, emailing people, texting people who you might have distanced yourself from, and, start carving out you time, because that usually goes out the window. So, if you gave up a sport or an art or any kind of hobby, whatever you did for yourself before, bring that back into your life.